Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of South County. We are an open and welcoming congregation comprised of people from different backgrounds, traditions, ethnicities, and faiths. We welcome diversity in all of its many forms. We are so glad you are here. Is that better? I want to mention that there are restrooms inside, right around this little circle of rocks, and there's masks right there because you need a mask to walk into the building. We'd like you to keep your cell phones off. I always say a restful respite from the demands of technology. And be aware of distancing yourself from others. Tomorrow is Indigenous Peoples Day. And the Boston Athletic Society is celebrating the 85th anniversary of Narragansett Ellison Brown's first of two Boston Marathon wins. It turns out that Ellison Tarzan Brown is Thawn Harris's great uncle. I don't know if any of you have heard of him, but he was in the 1936 Olympics, which was a very famous Olympics with Jesse Owens. He won the first marathon in Boston. The first one that he won in 36, and the second one he won in 39. But in 38, in 38 he was running along, and he decided he was too hot, and he took a swim in the lake, and he came in, 15th or whatever. He was a character. One of the marathons that he ran, he had just eaten hot dogs and milkshakes. And that was one of the ones he won, I think. And last but not least, he's very famous for running barefoot. Thawn was reminding me that when the state of Rhode Island wanted to honor him with a Tarzan Brown Day, he said, no, let's make it a Narragansett Indian Day. So his grandson, who was speaking on NPR this week, said that he thought that the famousness of Tarzan Brown brought new attention to the Narragansett tribe. So that was great. Our opening words are from Thawn. They're a Narragansett prayer.
Oscar we crossing, everyone. I heard Oscar we crossing, yes, and I will actually talk about that in a second. Just a funny story as I start about my great uncle Tarzan. So that was my grandmother's older brother. My grandmother was the youngest of the family, and she always told us a story about this one time she was sitting out in the yard and she saw her brother go running by. And she said, Mom, come quick. Tarzan's out here running in his underpants. And my grandmother's mother came. Her name was Grace as well. And she said, no, those are his running shorts. He's training, honey. He's training. And she had never seen anything like that. She thought he was running around in his underpants. And she was trying to get him in trouble. But he was a very generous man. And she also tells of the time where they had no food, and they didn't even realize it, but he had been saving money, and he went out and dug up a little can and brought food for the entire family. So that was my great uncle. Yeah, he's pretty famous. I like how I get claps for him, even though I didn't do anything. So I'm actually going to start off with some words of acknowledgement. She said Narragansett Indian Day, and when we're standing in these places, and what a gorgeous sight we're at right now. I get to look at the water neat straight behind you, and to hear nature, and it's quiet. Even though we're close to the road, it's quiet, and you hear the environment around us. So I'm actually going to start off with some words of acknowledgement and also some education of who the Narragansetts were, and then I will open us up with a prayer of thanksgiving. Asko we kwasin the sunamis. Ni tampawag ninawan Narragansett. Hello, my friends. We are the people at the corner of the land, people of the point, people of the bay, people between the waters. When standing in Rhode Island, we must remember this is Narragansett land. The Narragansett are the only intertribally, state and federally recognized tribe in Rhode Island. We are a sovereign nation. Our people have been here for time immemorial, holding council, governing, persisting through genocide, preserving our old ways. The Narragansett were the most numerous in this place. William Woods wrote that. He said, the most numerous people in those parts, the most rich also, and the most industrious, being a storehouse of all such kind of wild merchandise as is amongst them. In 1524, Giovanni di Verrazzano sailed into the bay, and he wrote, these people are the most beautiful and have the most civil customs that we have found on this voyage. They are taller than we are, and their manner is sweet and gentle. They are very generous and give away all they have. They live a long time and rarely fall sick, and their end comes with old age. We were hunters, farmers, scientists, philosophers, mathematicians, historians, and orators. A large population of Narragansett continue to live today in Providence, in South County, in Newport, and throughout all of Rhode Island. Yet, we remain invisible in our own homelands. We give thanks to Akiane, the spirit of our Mother Earth, who birthed us, and to whom we shall return. Where the blood of our ancestors has fallen, the evergreen trees stand still. The spruce and the cedar are sentinels watching over our homelands. Our people were and are willing to share land. Our people did not have the notion of land ownership as permanent, private, inheritable property. Instead, we focused on who had the right for use of the land. These land use rights were shared with Roger Williams. When Roger Williams founded Providence, he entered into a tributary contract with our people. He was allowed to use these lands and the gifts they provided, and he reciprocated with offerings to the Narragansett sachems. This was not payment for the land, as even Williams contends, but a practice of reciprocity for the ability to use these lands for that time. Our people never imagined that Providence would be usurped from us, or that Narragansetts would not be allowed to use the land or waterways for shelter, sustenance, or travel for generations to come. On March 29th, 1676, after our people were massacred in the Great Swamp, Connaught burned down the city of Providence. Our people still hold that Rhode Island is the unceded territory of the Narragansett. When our people used these lands, we took care of them. When I look at my homelands today, my heart cries at their mistreatment. Despite the din of the city ringing in my ear, when I listen closely, I can still hear the song of the universe standing on the hilltop. Our people still gather. We still sing exaltations to Skyworld, humbled by the eternity of the cosmos above. Namanatumin, Napiomin, Ingin Kisakwa, Nashpi Nachikwa Naita Hanoanash, Katapatamish Katantua, Wuchi Wami, Nawamani Tonk, Natonksawag. Creator, I stand before you today with a quiet and open heart. I give thanks to you, Creator, for all your blessings and all my beloved relations. Be it so. Ninash. So, just when we give thanks and prayer, so someone actually asked me about this. This we call a popokornatup, and it is our drum. And for us, the drum beat represents the heartbeat of all creation, of our Earth Mother. And so, with opening, most ceremonies we do, we open with a song. So if I could do that, please. And forgive me because, as I say, the skin is alive still, and whole spirit. And in the cold, sometimes it is a little flat. We normally would heat this in the fire, and it would give a little more resounding sound.
We will now have our gathering music, and I don't have in front of me the hymn that it is, but you all do. 290 to stay mass. Yes. If you'd like to sing, please keep your mask on. And what I also forgot to announce was that there are a couple more blankets next to Bill if anyone needs one. There you go. think you have on your order of service, if those of you who have it, the words to the chalice lighting. You can say them with me if you'd like. I'm going to say them first and then try to light the chalice. It just got windy. Some say it's dark we cannot see, but love lights up the world for me. Some say turn around and just go hide, but we have the power to change the tide. The real power is yours and mine, so let my little light shine, or your little light shine. It's one of the verses of this little light of mine. I practiced this morning, but it's not working. We will have a brief moment of flame, and I think that'll be it. Now we will repeat the covenant together. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thawn Harris and his wife and 7 children live adjacent to Narragansett tribal lands, and for the past 25 years he has worked for the tribe as an environmental police officer. He has presented his music, dance, and stories in venues that range from the U.S. Department of Defense to Tanzania, as well as many New England schools, institutions, and organizations. With a degree in physical education and health from URI, he currently works as a physical education advisor at the Med School in Providence. We're now going to have him tell us a story for all ages.
So, just reading through the program today, what struck me most is, if everyone could just stop for a second, right, and see that creature right there, because that creature is going to be in our story. Okay, you see the circles that he's doing there? We're going to talk about that a little bit. So, but what really struck me was the use of the word light. It is used throughout the entire program, and I saw the kids' song before when they're going to go off and about letting your light shine. And I said, Oscar Wikwasin, when I first came up here this morning. And that is a greeting. That is one way in which we, Narragansett people, say hello. But Wikwa is our word for light. And what it really is saying is that thank you. Well, one is saying, I can see the light within you. And that says, see the light within you. But also, not only are we seeing the light within each other, we're sharing light. We've woken up to a new day, and we are sharing the light together. And so when we say Oscar Wikwasin, it is much more than hello. It's a recognition of the light that everybody brings and the light that we share when we are together. So I just wanted to say that. So when we speak of light, many, many moons ago, there was no light here in this place. The creatures lived here in darkness. It was before people were even on this earth. And as you can imagine, life with no light would be life that is much more difficult. But the creatures lived in this darkness. And somehow, even though everything was dark, they managed to gather together, kind of like you're gathered together here this morning, and they held council. And one of the creatures, I believe it was Tunapa turtle, said, it has been passed down in my family that we can change all this. I saw that in your program too. You all have the light to make change. We can change all this. There is something called Nipaus, but someone brought it to the other side of the world. We need someone to go and get Nipaus and bring it here, and we will have light. Well, the animals heard this, and it sounded really exciting and really scary. It was something they were not used to. But there was one creature who was brave and said, I will go to the other side of the world, and I will get Nipaus, that light, and I will bring it to us. Do you want to guess what that animal was? Who? No? A bear. I heard a bear. It wasn't bear. A little bit smaller, bigger than a mouse. How about you? You got a guess? Any other guesses out there?
Wait, the butterfly that was just circling, that one.
No, so it wasn't a bird. This creature has 4 legs, smaller than a bear, bigger than a mouse. You see these creatures a lot in South County. They're really fast. It wasn't coyote, but we're getting closer.
Teddy.
Not a dog. A little bit smaller. Well, it might try to eat a cat. Yes, I heard it. Who said it? You said it? It was fox. Can we all say Miss Squasham? Miss Squasham. Fox, Miss Squasham. Miss Squasham said, I will go and I will bring back Nipaus, that light. Well, it was dark, but Fox moved pretty fast even though it was dark because Fox had a great sense of smell. But he made it to something really huge that was blocking his way. What was it? Absolutely. Keaton, the ocean. And he knew even though he took swimming lessons at the Y, he could not swim across that whole ocean. But Fox had known as being really smart creatures, and he was really smart, and he got an idea. He felt around on the ground and found a nice sharp rock, and he walked around till he felt a nice big tree, and he began to chip away at that tree, and it took a long time, but eventually he could feel that tree was going to fall. And then he was afraid. What if one of the creatures were walking by? He couldn't see, and they couldn't see. It was dark, and that tree landed on them. He couldn't live with that. That would be terrible. Does anyone here speak Fox? No? Well, I'll speak Fox, and then I'll translate it to English. This is what he yelled out in Fox. In Fox, he yelled out, timber! And in English, that means, move out the way, a tree is falling! And sure enough, that tree fell, and he had his sharp rock, and he began to chip away at that tree some more until he built a boat, a canoe, mashoon, boat, yes! And he made a paddle too, and he jumped inside, and he began to paddle across Keaton, that great ocean. And he was paddling for a long time, and his arms were tired, and he was bored, and he was alone. And he thought, man, I should have charged my iPhone last night. No more battery. He was out there all alone, and he started to go a little wild, you know. He's like Tom Hanks talking to his little volleyball. But he didn't even have a volleyball. He was all alone. And so he began to hum to himself. And that humming turned into a song. And he thought, wow, this is a really great song. Not only will I be a hero for bringing back the sun, the light, I'll also be a pop star. Woo! Put videos on YouTube. And this was his song. Chamash, 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 kamashun, manani nuki musi. Weekend time, kariaka na kwamawa. And all the animals did love that song when they learned it so much that it was translated in many languages, and we actually still sing it today. Does anyone recognize that song? I heard some people. What did you say? Absolutely. Let's all sing it together. Ready? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Hey, you know, we have to be careful. I said there's lots of Fox in South County, right? Fox kind of gets angry when he hears people singing that song because most people don't give him credit, and he never got any royalty checks, and he's pretty angry about that. But he made it all the way to the other side of the world, and sure enough, he saw light, and he ran even faster until he got to this great big ball of fire, and he ripped a little piece off. And he looked down, and he said, where will I put it? You know, he loves superheroes. As a matter of fact, every night before he went to sleep, he had on his Superman PJs. But he realized they didn't have any pockets. So he took that piece of the sun and he wrapped it up in his tail. I'll pretend this is his tail. And he jumped back in his canoe and he started to row back across the ocean. And he was singing his song. And his tail got really hot. So he took the piece of the sun and he said, I can't do that. And he stuck it in his mouth. And then he just hummed a song. But his mouth started getting hotter. And he thought, what am I going to do? It's getting too hot for me. But he had no place else to put it. And so his mouth got hotter, and the hotter it got, the faster he rode, and the faster he rode, the hotter it got. And finally he had to spit it out. And he returned back to the other creatures, and he talked really funny. He said, and everyone said, what did the fox say? Ding, 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 ding. Right? You know that song, yeah. Right. And he was telling them the sun is over there, but I couldn't get it. And the next one to go was Possum, and she, too, made it to the other side of the world. And just like she saw a fox hurt his mouth, so she did what he did earlier. She wrapped it in her tail. But her tail didn't look like her tail looks today. She had this long, beautiful tail. It was gorgeous. And she thought, oh my God, this must be the most beautiful tail any creature has ever seen. And she looked down and she said, wow, I have quite the figure too. When I go back, I'm going to be a model and I'm going to walk the runways and everyone will be jealous of me. Well, she wrapped that sun up in her tail and she too jumped in the canoe and she was rowing across, and the faster she rowed, it seemed like the hotter it got, and the hotter it got, the faster she rowed. But she didn't want to move it to her mouth. She kept it right in her tail. But after a little while, something started to burn. And eventually she had to put her tail in that sun right in Keaton, the ocean, and it went out. And when she returned, she had her tail all bandaged up. She said, yes, the sun is over there, but be careful, it is very, very, very hot. And she also told them that wait until they saw her in the light and how beautiful her tail was, and everyone was going to be jealous. Wow. Different creatures went and different creatures failed. And finally, when they thought there was no hope to bring back the light, they heard a little voice. It wasn't a mouse, smaller than a mouse. How about you? You got a guess? You got a guess? Yes, Spider. You heard this story maybe. Spider. And they said, Spider, you're too little. You can't go. And Spider said, how do you know you can't see me? It's dark. They couldn't see Spider, but she was little and she couldn't row a canoe. But she could do something they couldn't. She made a web and she floated across on her web. Yeah, and then she came to that light and she ripped off a little piece and she spun her web around it. She didn't just spin her web, though. She made a handbag any woman would adore and love. And all her little children were sitting on her back. That's why we always say if you really want to get something done, you have to have a woman to do it. Because they know how to multitask. And she was no different. And there she was floating across the sky with the sun in her bag and her kids on her back. But that sun started to get hotter and hotter and started to burn through her silk. But what could she do? She fling it. That's not quite what she did. Layer it. Excellent job. She layered it. She just kept spinning more and more silk around that sun, and she brought it all the way back to where the creatures were. And the first animals to see that light up in a tree, there were 4 beetles. And they saw that light, and they were so inspired, they started to sing. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right. I heard they later moved to Britain and started a group, but that's a whole different story. The next animal to see that light was Guthian, this great buck. And he was so afraid of the light. Do you think of this great buck as being big and strong and not afraid? But he was afraid. And he turned and he ran as fast as he could right through the darkness and slammed right into a tree. And when he came away from the tree, he was kind of embarrassed because he was afraid of the sun, which they all wanted. But he had some branches stuck in his head. And he was embarrassed about that too. But then he looked at all the doe, the female deer, and they were looking at him like he was pretty cool. And you know, guys do a lot of dumb things, and sometimes girls look at us like we're cool when we do it, which is why we keep doing it. And that's no difference that every year, those Guthian, they grow these things that look like branches, right? And that's just to impress people. And then after a little while, they get bored with that and they shed them. But next year, they grow some new ones. Well, they had the light. And they were so happy and excited, and they were all gathered around like us again. And they had this big campfire, and they were hanging out and cooking hot dogs or whatever. Who knows? They were having a good time. But when they went away, it was dark again. And they said, we need this light to be up in the sky so that everyone can share it and no one will come and take it from us. And that's where Buzzard comes into play. That buzzard took the piece of the sun and he set it right up on his head. Now, a long time ago, Buzzard used to have a full head of feathers. But he began to fly up towards the sun, and the faster and higher he flew, the more that sun burnt his feathers. But he knew he needed to make it to Sky World, so he just kept flapping and flapping. And those feathers kept burning and burning. But eventually he made it into Sky World, and he flipped off Nipawus, the sun, and he returned back down here. And he stuck his head in the water. Could have been right over here, actually. And he looked at his reflection in the water, and where he once had a full head of feathers, it now was burned and was red and kind of looked like Possum's tail, who was sitting right next to him. And Possum looked over and saw that that buzzard was looking at her tail, which now was not filled with fur. It was long and skinny and looked kind of like a rat's tail. And she was so embarrassed because she had bragged so much about that tail that she rolled over and played dead. And to this day, if you look at Possum's tail, she gets embarrassed and she rolls over and plays dead or plays possum. And next to Possum was Fox, and Fox was looking at his mouth where it was burned. And he had a big black circle around it. And all fox to this day have that same big black circle around their mouth. And you see buzzards to this day flying in the sky with their bald heads. But they all fly a certain way. They do big circles, usually around Nipawus, the sun. And that's because they're hoping and wishing that maybe, just maybe, there might be a feather still floating around up there in the sky, and they can stick it in and do the comb-over move, and the world will be a better place. Hanivere.
When I wrote up the order of service, I put in the children's song. They're not going anywhere, but I thought it was fun to sing it to them. So please join me. Go with wisdom, go with wonder, go to meet a brand new day. Learn to see the light within you as we send you on your way. Go with wonder, go to meet a brand new day. Learn to see second hymn, which is number 324. we thank you for your generosity, and we pledge to use your gifts wisely and well for this congregation. Now we will hear once again from Now we will welcome Thawn Harris once again.
First, I am just going to say that I have never experienced a community quite like this. So I have actually been to different kind of church services and stuff, but I must say that this is really quite beautiful. To look at you all gathered here and community, I apologize for that. And just when you spoke earlier that it is open to everything and all people, I think that very much aligns with the way the Narragansett people, and I shouldn't say, I will say were. I can't say that is necessarily the case for everyone now, but definitely traditionally, our people were very open, and most of our prayer and our ceremonies is about giving thanks and being thankful for the gifts that we have. It may be in trying times like we're in right now, with COVID and uncertainty and definitely a lot of division within our country, but it really focuses on being thankful for what we do have, being community and being there for our neighbors, our family, and not just being about self. It's not about what you can accumulate. It's about how we as a community can move forward and everyone can reap the benefits of life to the fullest. I talked about Roger Williams. You know, one thing he did do was he recorded a lot of the life ways of our people, and as well as our language, which I'm very thankful for that, because as we know, there were times where we weren't allowed to speak our language. It was absolutely, we were forced, it's forced assimilation, right? We weren't allowed, we were stripped from our families through indentured servitude and other means as a way to eradicate those traditional things. But he preserved our language, which when I speak, it is very limited, but I'm still able to say those words that my ancestors said. And through that language and through the teachings of our elders, it definitely gives more insight into our feelings of things. And in our language, what you may not know is a lot of things. So there's two categories. There's inanimate and there's animate. So if it is animate, it has spirit. And when we speak of things like Anakwasag, the stars, Nanapashit, the moon, Nipaus, the sun, the trees, the fit, these things have spirit in our language. And you can tell by the way they end, the ending at the end, but they have spirit, and which means they have life, and they do. If you think about it, when we look around, nature touches us in ways we don't even understand. People go and seek out nature, and they sit and they're quiet, and it touches their spirit because Oscar we Kwasan, we share that light. We see each other's light, and it touches us. So I'm very thankful that you invited me here today to share in your wonderful community and to share this space, as you said, Caleb, which I actually had in my speaking, had kind of wrote down, to recognize that we share this space. When you think about us here in this place and what it took for us to be here, I mean, the gazillions of possibilities that we were even born is just way too much for most people to fathom. And not only are we born, now we are chosen to share this time in this space here together. And there has to be meaning in that. That we are touching each other in ways we don't even know. Now I came here today and I see some faces that are familiar to me, and I see lots of new faces, but it cannot be denied that we are here at this time, in this place, and feeling very much each other's light and feeling the nature that is around us. And so, as we say when we depart mostly, you may have heard of, the famous Roger Williams greeting is what cheer ni top, right? They say, so what cheer is actually an English greeting, but ni top means friend. So ni tampawag, usually when we end any place or meet new people, we speak of each other as ni tampawag, that we now have touched each other, we now are friends, or in a sense it's almost as if, our community has grown and our family has grown in that sense. And so, with speaking of light as well, I think we need to keep this focus of light because there is so much energy within light, and we each hold that. And I was very surprised and happy to see that, as I said earlier, again. So, many, many moons ago, Nipaus, that light in the sky, had been put up there by the creatures. Well, fast forward into people inhabited this land. We say we came here from Sky Daughter, but we inhabited this land. And many of you may or may not know, but for those of you who don't know, they actually uncovered one of the largest archaeological sites right over behind Marshall's, right? I'm looking out there. I was looking because Mark Levitt did oh, there she is. Mark did a documentary on that, her husband over there. But yes, they uncovered one of the largest archaeological sites east of the Mississippi. And so we are standing like right next to Narragansett village where it would be. And if you could just imagine this village here on the salt pond, the place between the waters, and what our life looked like. We used the waterways a lot. And we had the sun. And the crops were always bountiful, and there was plenty of fish in the ocean and in the streams and the rivers. And life became very easy. At certain times, we would tap the trees and we would get the sweet maple syrup. And we would collect the cranberries and nuts and other berries that the land gave us. And the people became complacent. Everything came so easy to them. And they feasted and feasted till their stomachs were full. And that's how they spent their days lounging on the beaches, absorbing that sunlight, and just enjoying and enjoying. But they stopped giving thanks for those gifts. They forgot the sacrifices that once came to obtain all that joyousness that life was providing for them. And so, without them even recognizing, Nipaus, that sun, started to move across the sky faster and faster. And the days became shorter and shorter. And it got to a point where just as soon as Nipaus, that sun, hit the horizon, it would race across the sky and leave the people in darkness again. And life began to get tough. The food wasn't growing, and they couldn't find their way around to get to fish and hunt And the people began to suffer so bad. And they called out to Weetucks and they said, Weetucks, please help us. And Weetucks is what we call as, you would probably understand it as a culture hero. He was a giant of a man. He was not Katantuwe, our great creator, but he was this in-between giant who often helped the Narragansett people. And Weetucks came and heard their concern. And he got an idea. And he sat along the beach and he began to weave the reeds. And he made this giant, giant net. And as he was doing this, day after day, he watched the horizon, that sun come up and race across the sky and disappear. And one morning, just as the light was starting to come up, just before it raced across, he saw that his net was finished. And he waded out into the deep waters of Thawn, which means ocean. And he watched the sun race across the sky many times. And when he thought he had the timing right, just as the Katampanisha, the rise of that sun was happening, he cast his net on the horizon. And sure enough, he caught Nipawus, the sun. And he had a conversation. And he said, why are you racing across the sky? The people are suffering. Your light was enjoyed for so many years. Why must you deprive us of it now? And that sun said, the people have forgotten about me. They no longer in the mornings lift their heads up to the sky and give thanksgiving for my blessings. And so I hide my face from them. Well, Katantuwe, the creator of all things, had taught Weetucks well. And Weetucks went and he spoke to the people and he said, the sun will forgive you if once more you remember the ways as it was once before he was here. And if every morning you get up and you give thanksgiving for the blessings that Nipawus, the sun, gives you, he will return. And so to this day, every morning, most Narragansett, I will say I absolutely do. When I get up in the morning, I step outside, and whether the clouds are covering it or not, I give thanksgiving for the blessings of the sun, for my friends, for my family, for Wachiwame, for all creation. And so that story teaches us, and we do a lot of teaching through our stories and our storytelling. We were people who orated and spoke. We didn't have a written language or a written word, but we spent time with our elders and we spoke with them. And they would tell us stories, especially when it got cool like now and we had to move more indoors. And through our stories, we learn many lessons of life. And so as we go in the world, whether it's in the morning, whether it's you're sitting in your car about to walk into Walmart or Stop and Shop or Belmont, whether it's at night and you realize you've forgotten, we must take time within our day and be thankful for the gifts that were given, that were to come. And the Narragansett people oftentimes give thanks to our past because, as I said, like, what are the chances that we are here in this space? We give thanks for all our ancestors because they all live within us still. How many of us look at little children? I say, I'm that middle age now, you know. And I have 7 children. I have one for every day of the week. I do. I have 7 children. I was too young to have the first one, but I had it anyway. Well, I didn't have it, but there she came. And I ended with twins. And I say, when I went from addition to multiplication, it was time to stop. Oof. I walked into the doctor's office. He looked at me. He thought I looked young, and he said, "How old are you?" And I said, "Doctor, I have 7 children." And he said, "You are in the right place. Let's get you taken care of so we can't have any more of those." No. But as a parent, I realize that I see within my children people who have come before. So, does anyone know Dovecrest Restaurant? Anyone remember? Oh, a few. Yes, so Dovecrest. So I am married to a dove. My wife's name is Eleanor Dove. She's named after her grandmother, Eleanor Dove, who ran Dovecrest Restaurant and helped with Tamaqua Museum. And her husband, Ferris, who also ran that, he wore, if you noticed him, if you see any pictures of him, you'll see that he pulls his pants up way up high, just below his nipples, right, way over his belly button, way up high. And I have one child, Yoyache, and it's the darndest thing, because that kid will not put his pants on his waist. They're way up here. Everywhere he goes, they're way up here. And I say, that is his grandfather, his great-grandfather within him. And I see it in all my children. Different faces they make, different attitudes they may have. And I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir, right? Is that a saying? That all of you who experience seeing young ones can see ones that came before within them. So we are absolutely a collection of all of our ancestors. We hold that same genetic code, that same DNA, and it is a blessing. So we must always give thanksgiving for those who came before us to lead us here in this place here today. And we give thanks for the present, to be forever, whenever we can, in that moment of life now. And so we give thanks for that. And the last and most important thing we give thanks for is our future. I look at the young children here today, and whenever I see them, as a father of 7, you gotta love kids, right? In order to have 7 of them. Our young ones are absolutely our future, our continuation. And it is a saying for much of Indian country, not only the Narragansett, but throughout Indian country in general, that we must preserve for the next 7 generations. So what that means is that we must do our best, we must care for our Earth Mother so that our Earth Mother can be here for the next 7 generations to come. And if everyone kind of keeps that mindset within them, then I know it is hard in this modern world, but we can see our children's children in the future, so that there is a future for them, and that we will continue on. So, again, I just really want to thank you for allowing me here today to share this light with you, to share a little bit of how the Narragansett kind of look at the world around them, and to just be thankful for all the gifts and community that we have. Because here in South County, we have, it is a pretty special, beautiful place that we live in. I work in Providence, and as I said in the words before, sometimes standing in the city, it truly hurts my heart, and I know that there needs to be a place for all people, but just you don't see community the same way that you see community here. And we say in our special little Rhode Island, our special little homeland here, we always say it's a small world, right? And in Rhode Island, you kind of see everyone. But that is even more so present here in South County, in this place. And this place still, though it is, I'm from Charleston, it still feels kind of city to me. This place is, this place is much more still community oriented and in a special place. And this place, as I said, the Narragansett had a large village right over there because this is a place of beauty. And you can see that all around you. I continue to look at the foliage, the colors of the leaves, and the water moving behind me. And I just want to say Katabatash.
Thank you so much, Thawn. Our closing hymn is number 298. And there we go. Okay. Before I extinguish the chalice, I just want to say something about our chalice upstairs. I want to remind you that the beautiful carved wooden chalice we have upstairs was created by a Narragansett craftsman, Christian Hopkins. And I'm sorry that you didn't get to see it, Dawn, but you'll have to come back sometime. It's beautiful, but it has a little glass oil lamp on it, and I just felt that it was too fragile to bring down with wind and children and everything. So I also think that this is a small miracle that this candle actually stayed lit. We extinguish the chalice but not its light. That we take with us out into the world, sharing it with those we encounter on our journey. Thawn will lead us through closing words and a surprise, I think.
So, I have a question. Your closing circle. Do you actually get in a circle? So, if, what I was hoping, so this could kind of go a couple different ways. I'm very flexible. If you do normally end in a closing, I would love a lot of our circles are important, right? There's no beginning, there's no end in a circle, and it also just symbolizes in our culture unity. So what I was hoping is that we could do some kind of circle dance, and dance sounds intimidating and frightening. We don't really have to dance, but what we do is called now a round dance, but it is a dance of unity and a dance of friendship. And as I said, the drum in our culture represents the heartbeat of our earth. And so we oftentimes try to step in unison with that heartbeat. We don't actually have to dance in a circle. What we are going to do, though, if I could, as a way in which we give thanks, is through song and dance. But I would like to sing and share this round dance experience. As I said, we are all now the Tampawag. We are all friends and all community together. So we're not actually going to go anywhere. We're not actually going to have to dance. If you want, you can step in place, kind of to this drum beat. And forgive me for brevity, but when we sing this song, as I spoke before, we actually sing this 3 times through. Once was at least 3 times through, sometimes 4 for the full direction, but usually 3 times for the past, the present, and future.